All right. Just before we start, I just caught the end of Christine's story and hearing her go with the heart message. It kind of really aligns with I think a lot of what I'm going to say today. And as you can see, I've called today's session "A Walk in the Valley of Shadows," which obviously, you know, as we know, is here on Earth, and some other random stuff, because however, it all gets back to the heart and how we listen to that. And Miko was saying how she's becoming more accepting of listening to that inner voice, and you know, and the more, at least from my learnings, particularly in the last probably 4 or 5 years, but more so in the last 2 years, is the more we can do that, the more we tune into and listen to our heart, and that strong but soft and often not very loud inner voice, the better things turn out for us. The calmer we are, the more peaceful we are, you know, and the more that we trust in that. It's not always easy to do, though, when we are you know, we do walk in the valley of shadows. So I thought I'd start a little bit differently this week, and the heart-brain coherence. So I did a couple of presentations ago, put in a link to the Greg Braden thing, and Greg Braden has, as many of you would know, he adapted this little technique from the Heart Math Institute, and I'd just like to take you through that. I will not do it as well as Greg Braden does in his brilliance, but I still want to take you through that, because it links back to what Miko was saying, what Christine was saying about trusting our intuition. So I'm just going to invite you to take a few steps and just go through the heart-brain coherence. It only takes a couple of minutes, but you know, it can be a good way to set up the rest of today's presentation. So the first thing, I would just invite you to touch your heart space, and that's either with a finger, a couple of fingers, a hand on the chest. And when you do that, you actually bring your attention to that part of your body, because your brain always goes where you feel the touch. So that's the first thing, is just to touch that heart space. And the second thing then is to slow your breathing down. So, like, you know, for example, breathe in for a count of 5, and breathe out for a count of 5. And do that again. Breathe in for a count of 5, and breathe out for a count of 5. Do that again, but breathe as if it's coming from your heart space. And as you slow your breathing and you breathe from the heart, you send a signal to your body in general, and to your heart specifically, that you are in a place that is safe, and it's okay to turn your attention inward. This step it's a powerful standalone technique. You know, when you're feeling overwhelmed by the day, you can just do that. It's a simple way to slow down and connect to your heart. But it also lays a foundation for the next part of this. And so once we've connected to our heart, we've slowed our breathing, the next step then is to activate a positive feeling. And so from your heart center, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling. And that's something like gratitude, appreciation, care for someone or something in your life. So gratitude, appreciation, or care for someone or something in your life. So while you've slowed your breath, while you're touching your heart space, generate that feeling: gratitude, appreciation, or care. And so the key here is to then fully surrender to the feeling and fully embrace it, while allowing it to radiate from your heart space and feel your body. And when you do that, you optimize the harmony and the coherence between your heart and your brain. And that can have a profound impact on the activity that you're doing just on your general health. And it's, as a writer, someone who creates and needs to get into that heart space, it's something that I do before I sit down to write. Most of the time. Sometimes I forget because I'm busy, because I'm a human being, and because I'm walking in the valley of shadows. But the more we can do that little exercise of harmonizing the heart and brain and getting them coherent, as Greg Braden does so eloquently, the better we can perform. So I found it, I felt it really interesting that Christine mentioned the listening, go with your heart and listen to your heart, because she had no knowledge of this particular first slide. So, all right. So, thank you for doing that. Hopefully, you did feel a shift, and let's get a little bit back into the 3D, but in our heart space as we go through. So, a couple of things I want to share with you this week is some energy shifts, or evidence rather, of the energy shifts that continue via messages from nature. I want to take a deeper and a different look at Psalm 23. I know I think I did that last time or the time before, but it gets back to that heart thing, and trusting our intuition, and how we negotiate this thing that we call life in the 3D here. A thing that all of us, well, I'm speaking for myself, but I think most people can afford to let go of without anything bad coming back to affect us. So hopefully you will get something out of that. I just want to talk too about the curse of the busy Baxen, where that comes from, and how we can overcome that. And I will do, like I did last time, an oracle card reading, this time not from Rumi, but from the Archangel Michael deck that I read from quite a bit. And then we'll have some Q&A at the end if time allows. All right, so in Susan Kennedy's words, I first saw this. Susan Kennedy, she writes under and paints under the pen name Sark, and that's S-A-R-K. And I first saw this poster hanging on the wall of the chiropractor we used to go to back probably the late 90s, I think it was. And I've always really connected to it. And it gets back to that, go with your heart, because what she's written here, it's how to be an artist. And without trying to beat myself up, I mean, I have this hanging in my office as well. I try and do all of this to varying degrees of success on different days of the week. But I just wanted to share this with you, and in the hope that you would get something out of it about being an artist, even if you're not arty or artistic. The sentiment behind it can help you walk through the valley of shadows. So, How to Be an Artist by Sark. Stay loose. Learn to watch snails. Plant impossible gardens. Invite someone dangerous to tea. Make little signs that say yes, and post them all over the house. Make friends with freedom and uncertainty. Look forward to dreams. Cry during movies. Swing as high as you can on the swing set by moonlight. Cultivate moods. Refuse to be responsible. Do it for love. Take lots of naps. Give money away. Do it now. The money will follow. Believe in magic. Laugh a lot. Celebrate every gorgeous moment. Take moon baths. Have wild imaginings. Transformative dreams and perfect calm. Draw on the walls. Read every day. Imagine yourself magic. Giggle with children. Listen to old people. Open up. Dive in. Be free. Bless yourself. Drive away fear. Play with everything. Entertain your inner child. You are innocent. Build a fort with blankets. Get wet. Hug trees. Write love letters. And as I reflect on that, and I'd probably ask you to reflect on that, how many times in the last month have you done more than 3 of those things? And most of us probably go, gee, probably none, 1 or 2. And then the flip side of that is, how much better would your life be if you did so many more of those things in a month? Now, even just that first line, Stay loose, learn to watch snails. You know, you do those two things. You slow down, and yet the busyness of the 3D world that we live in, you know, it almost demands that we don't do that stuff. And so I really want to start today with that, like, you know, to challenge myself and to challenge you, you know, how can you be more of an artist? How can you slow down and do those things? How can you do more of listening to your heart? So on that note, here's one way that I embrace that. It's not really artistic, but I do try and slow down, and I do try and look at and connect to the world around me. And so I'll go back to weird guy who looks at clouds all the time. I think was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. I went outside when Grace Warren was talking, and there was this, you know, angel cloud above the house next door, just kind of overlooking things, and it looked like that. It stayed around. It got really deeper, and it stayed around for probably 15 or 20 minutes. I think I sent one of those photos through, I think, and Grace shared it on the screen when she was speaking. So that's one of the ways I connect and try and be more of that artist rather than the person rushing around in the 3D. I'd love to say I've got it all figured out. I certainly don't. But the good news at times for me is I'm not the only weirdo, and I'll explain what I mean. But I'm not the only weirdo who looks at clouds and sees things and notices things in the 3D world. This photograph was taken at Noosa on Friday, and a lady sent it to me who lives up at Noosa, and it was the feather in the cloud, and I just thought, wow. Look at that. I mean, it's either half an angel wing or a feather. It looks more like a feather, I guess. So I got a little bit of, I guess, egotistical comfort out of that I'm not the only weirdo out there. I guess I probably didn't really care if I was, but, you know, so again, if you stop and you take notice and you look and you feel you can feel the changes that we've talked about. You can see evidence of the changes that we've talked about. And I thank Christine for this. These photographs were taken on the 4th of this month in Albany. So different sides of the country, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, my camera's the same. When there's different shades of light, it doesn't really capture the essence of it. And I'll ask you to give us a little bit of poetic license here, if you like, because there was this really weird light in the morning over Albany. Now, I know the photo doesn't do it justice, but even looking at the reflection of the clouds in the water, you can kind of sense that there's something a little bit different. And there were 3 images that Christine sent through. So there is still this energy, this change. Is it the 5D energy to get us out of the 3D coming to the Earth? Several people think so. You know, but it is kind of everywhere. One of the people I follow on Facebook, Paz Kute, I think I have, I've shared a couple of things of his before, but the middle of last month, there was this, you can see this photograph here. Just got a couple of, okay, actually interesting, Sam. The reflections kind of look like the Schumann resonance. That's really interesting, Sam. Thank you for that. And thanks, Sam. Definitely felt a shift. That was great. Fantastic. Let me just go back. The Schumann resonance. Actually, I can see what you mean. Yeah, probably. Yeah, actually, it does. Yeah. Yeah, it's like that Schumann resonance scale. Synchronicities, no coincidences. Anyway, this one here, you can see the photograph, the caption above the photo, the photographer is Jennifer Mason, don't know who that is, but the Rainbow Warrior, incoming one source energy, wave of rainbow frequency. So on Friday, the Friday just gone, again, the skies were weirdly active with weird clouds, this feathery kind of thing in the sky over where I lived. And so where that palm tree is on the right, to the right of that, I showed that. You may be able to see it at the end of the palm frond. There was another little portal, if that's what it is. A couple of questions. Alexi's been seeing rainbows everywhere. Yeah, agree. And Christine said, yeah, it was right across the whole harbour. Grace said she can see a whale in it. So I take a little bit of comfort. I'm not the only weirdo out there, which is good. Yeah, so look at the one on the left, and I don't know, pardon me, I don't know if you can see the portal, the incoming rainbow light frequency at the end of the palm tree. Anyway, that's what it looks like. You can see it just there, and that's it blowing up a bit more. So I mean, it's not as clear and stark in the Facebook one, but that stayed around for, I don't know, probably about 45 minutes, and then it shifted. And it shifted out to, from the right of the palm tree to the left of the palm tree, and the differing energy there. And this is the sky on Friday. So the little dot on the left, don't worry about that. That's the reflection of the sun in the camera. But it was a lot more prominent after that. Alex says, wow, that's amazing. Portal, I've been seeing rainbows too. Sheldon, me too. Okay. Christine, yeah, amazing. Yeah, it was, Christine. Grace said, that's much better than what I saw the other night. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so again, you can see that portal. It's kind of really prominent in at the V of where those clouds are parting. So you can see it down there a little bit clearer. That's it again in the middle, a bit clearer. That's it blowing up a bit more. It was and actually Grace and Christine and Will, that's why that sort of came up while we were chatting on Friday around the middle of the day there. Again, synchronicities, but yeah, some weird stuff, really cool weird stuff, I think, at least that I'm noticing. Actually, just interesting, last time I spoke, I spoke of the stingray / manta ray jumping in the water behind me. I was out just 10 minutes, probably 5 to 12. The barracuda in the pool got all tangled up, and I was out there untangling it, and behind me there was this big splash, and the stingray jumped again. So yeah, lots of weird stuff. But that's that rainbow portal, that pocket of energy light, whatever it might be, the 5D coming through. And the sunsets have been at different days incredible as well. You know, again, where's this weird light coming from? It's yeah, the one on the right, actually, that long narrow picture, I think was taken from Jenny's Samsung camera. For whatever reason, that tends to capture the differences and the nuances of light compared to my iPhone. So I don't know why that is, but yeah, so there still is this change, this energy, this shifting around the planet. All right, so I've gone to weirdo looking at clouds, but I just wanted to go back a step. Grace, that's because it's Asian. Samsung. Okay, I'll leave you to that one, Grace. Just a little bit of background. As some of you will know or may recall, I grew up Catholic. It was a blessing and a curse. It allowed me to connect to the spirit world, to Mother Mary and so forth. But I think I've spent most of the rest of my life, my adult life, or most of my adult life, unwinding, and I'm probably still doing it if I'm honest with myself, all of the baggage that comes with that, the Catholic guilt, you know, work hard now, the almost Puritan work hard now, your rewards will come in heaven, all of that kind of BS. I'm still unwinding and shedding those layers. In about 2005, I think, 2006, I was introduced to the personal development world. And so I believe I've read every single thing that there is, until I find that there's more, and I have only scratched the surface. And I keep delving into all of this. One of the things that really struck me, I don't know if anyone's been to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, a magnificent building, right? Just beautiful. Christmas morning mass, that was the last Catholic church I'd been into. Like I said, beautiful building. Christmas morning mass, one of the prayers before The communion in the Catholic Church is the creed, the Apostles' Creed. Were you a practicing Catholic or put on you? I was, while I was a kid, Grace, I was a practicing Catholic, but it was also very much put on me. You know, and the interesting thing about that is when you're a kid, you don't know anything else. You know, you just kind of think, well, that's the way the world is. Although as I started to get older, for instance, I'll just give you one example of the Catholic guilt thing. A friend of mine invited me to the Speedway on Saturday night, and I really wanted to go, and I wasn't allowed to go because we were going to Mass as a family, as we always did. And that was kind of one of the first things we go, oh, hang on, not everyone lives this, you know, rigid life where there's worship and all those sorts of things. So yeah, and that sort of slowly unraveled. But the last time I went into a Catholic church was I'll go 2015. I might be guessing. It might have been earlier than that. It might have been, yeah, I think it was 2015. Around about then. I'm trying to remember the prayer, the Apostles' Creed, perhaps it is. It's said before communion. You know, it's I confess to Almighty God and to you here present that I've sinned through my own fault, through my thoughts and in my words. And I'd never seen this before, but in St. Patrick's Cathedral, when the congregation said, I have sinned through my own fault, they actually said it 3 times and beat their chest. So I have sinned through my own fault, my own fault, my own fault, and beat their chest like that. And I just stopped talking. I just stopped parroting the prayer, and I felt really, really uncomfortable. It was this massive energy shift, and from that moment, I got out. I'd have to watch Steve Archbishop Plummer. Well, I was actually hoping it might have been a little bit high, like Cardinal Warren, but anyway, I got outside. So we had the kids with us, and I got outside the church, and I said to Jenny, I said, I'm never going back. I said, I can't believe the way that made me feel. It really hit me in the guts. And so from that moment on, but probably it was long before then that I'd started to trail off. And I actually haven't been back into a Catholic church other than for the funeral of my father a couple of years ago. But so I've been walking this parallel path of shedding my religious cloaks and gowns and all that sort of stuff, and personal and all the personal development stuff too. You know, and the first one I ever read was Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. So the Abraham stuff of about the time I read that, it was The Secret was coming out, you know, Think and Grow Rich, the Cry On series, you know, the Ringing Cedars of Russia series, and everything else. And so that's been a little bit of the background. And so it was really interesting to come into this particular group with the emphasis on the Bible stuff. And I, yeah, thank you, Cardinal. Actually, that's more like it. Thank you, Warren. I accept the promotion, the Cardinal for City Awakening. Okay, got to get the outfit too. No, thank you. It was interesting, the little bit of a conundrum that I faced of being kind of anti-religious and then delving into more stuff of the Bible. And it wasn't easy to embrace that again, but it's something that I'm slowly opening up to. And I actually bought, I'll share with you shortly, Greg Braden's latest book called The Wisdom Codes. And in it, he goes, it's not just biblical stuff, but there's other stuff from Sanskrit and a few other traditions around the world, but he decodes the codes that Warren's been talking about, you know, that exist in several biblical passages. So it's kind of an interesting journey, full circle, you know, in that I've gone from a fairly strict religious thing and now coming back more to, you know, the coding of the Bible. And it's interesting, I probably didn't as a kid really like the Bible too much, and there's probably a reason for that, in that all of the conditions and so forth that were you know, thrust upon me as a kid in that particular faith. And last time I spoke, or the 2 times ago I spoke, I mentioned the book that We're the Arcturians. And so part of that journey of reading everything and knowing that I've read everything and then finding there's a whole lot more stuff was looking at things like the Arcturians. And I focused last time on Psalm 23, and we've all done that. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's Psalm 23 on the King James Version, I believe. I wanted to focus on verse 4 there, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because like many people, I've had my struggles in terms of walking in the valley of the shadow of death. And if you may or may not recall, last time I shared this with you, the Arcturians shared with the people they were speaking to, the Betty Rice and so forth, the author, Norma Milanovic, Betty Rice and Cynthia Plosky, the actual meaning of Psalm 23. And the focus of that is that 4th verse, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And what the Arcturian said was this, and I want to read out the whole thing because to me it's quite instructive in terms of following our heart, in terms of being an artist, and in terms of not being caught up in all of those things, because it's, like in the weave of the universe, those things are intimately and intricately linked. And so what the Arcturian said is, Earth is likened to a valley because consciousness of humans is so low. It is considered by many in the higher realms to be the valley of shadows and illusions. Death is an illusion. Death is only the crossing over from one state of consciousness to another. It is the passing of one karmic responsibility to another. It is the connection back to the etheric body that is the soul. It is actually life. On Earth, another illusion is that evil exists. We observe that as in we the Arcturians observe that your negativity and terror are reality to you. What you do not understand is that you have created these processes through the powers of your own mind. Therefore, when one walks on the higher planes with God, the creator of all, evil and death are no longer feared. When one's consciousness transcends these illusions, there is no longer a need to retain them. Since each creates his or her own reality through the power of the inner world, once negativity and fear are removed, those qualities will no longer manifest on the earth plane or in an individual's environment. You really do have that much power, O sisters and brothers of the universe. And so just that one verse from Psalm 23, there is so much, that in the hustle and bustle of life that we kind of ignore, kind of don't really follow. And I just wanted to pick out a couple of salient passages from that I think are really important. And that part of the explanation starts off with, on Earth, another illusion is that evil exists. We, as in we the Arcturians, observe that your negativity and terror are a reality to you. What you do not understand is that you have created these processes through the powers of your own mind. And I think the flip side of that is, if we've created those processes with the powers of our mind, we can either uncreate them or we can create new powers, new processes. And they go on. Therefore, when one walks on the higher planes with God, the creator of all, evil and death are no longer feared. And the key part of it is this next part. When one's consciousness transcends these illusions, there is no longer a need to retain them. In other words, when we shift, when we get into our heart space and we shift away from fear and negativity, those things disappear. Because they then said, since each creates his or her own reality through the power of the inner world, once negativity and fear are removed, those qualities will no longer manifest on the earth plane or in an individual's environment. In the last sentence, you really do have that much power. And I actually believe that when we're not in our heart space, when we're too much in our head, we are not being true to that. And it's all there in the code of Psalm 23. And Miko says, wow, the hat and the robe. Thank you, Warren. On the outfit of the cardinal. Alrighty. So yeah, I just, and that's why I've called today a walk in the valley of shadows, because in me, I guess, rebelling or not connecting to biblical passages, I think I've overlooked so much. I've wanted to find things outside of the original, wealth, happiness kind of book. And as I delve more into it, I'd like to think I'm opening up my heart more, and opening up more to the codes within the passages here. And that's why, turning up every Sunday, I think is important, or at least as often as we can, because I actually think the rewards are great. As that last part says, since each person creates his or her own reality through the power of the inner world, once negativity and fear are removed, these qualities will no longer manifest on the earth plane and in our environment. And that's kind of, I think, what all of us strive for, is to get rid of the fear and the negativity, those negative things. So that's why Psalm 23 is I think is really powerful. I also think there's a connection. Warren mentioned the parable of the wheat and the tares last week or the week before, and I think there is a lot in that, because the negativity and the fear, that's like the tares in our mind, in amongst the wheat of love and compassion and all of those sorts of things. And if I go back even at the start of the year, is it as simple as, and this is what I was thinking when Warren was unpacking that parable, is it as simple as, because we all have thoughts, 50 scientists tell us 50,000 thoughts a day, is the wheat and the tares, is that spirit thoughts versus ego thoughts? And how the ego thoughts create disease and the spirit thoughts create ease in our lives. And again, where is our focus? Is it on the diseased thoughts, or is it on the ego thoughts? Is it on the tares, or is it on the wheat? And I think this is one of my struggles, I think personally, but I think it's one of the struggles of humanity, is how we get rid of that negativity so that we can manifest more and more of what we want. And I think too, I think too, the how to be an artist is a really practical way of of being more with the wheat and getting rid of the tares, of getting out of the negativity and getting more into our heart space. And Greg Braden also, in his new book, it's really good if if you see it when you're out and about. It's published this year. He says that when we look at the everyday expression of our spiritual and material abundance, our relationships, careers, and physical health, our deepest loves and greatest achievements, as well as our fears and the lack of these things, we may in fact be looking squarely at the mirror of our truest and sometimes most conscious beliefs. We see them in our surroundings because they are manifest through a field of energy that exists everywhere, at all times, and connects all things. So that last sentence, we see them in our surroundings because they are manifest through a field of energy that exists. And that, I think that gets back to very much to the to what the Arcturians were said, or said rather. He goes on in his book. He says, from the quantum way of viewing the world, everything we experience may be thought of as wrinkles disturbing an otherwise harmonious field of energy. Just say that again. Everything we experience may be thought of as wrinkles disturbing an otherwise harmonious field of energy. And so I guess my challenge to everyone is, and to myself is, how am I, via my thoughts, putting a wrinkle out into the field, the energy field, the quantum world? How am I disturbing the harmonious field of energy? Am I disturbing via my thoughts the harmonious field of energy with negativity, or am I disturbing the harmonious field of energy with positive thoughts, with thoughts of peace and ease and joy? Or are they thoughts of negativity and jealousy and hate and anger and judgment, etc., etc.? And Greg Braden then goes on, he actually unpacks Psalm 23 as well. He has a little bit of a different view from the Arcturians. What he uses the New International Version. I just want to read a little bit about why he chose that. And Warren being more of the biblical scholar may have a view on this, but he has said that, I'll just find it. He said, recognizing that there are many numerous translations for the same ideas is important for understanding Psalm 23 because of the nuances that are revealed in the text. He says, for example, the Common King James Version begins in verse 1 with the words, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And here is the version that, the NIV translation, it's a little bit different. And this is what Greg Braden says about it. So I'll just read that again. For example, the Common King James Version begins in verse 1 with the words, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." A common interpretation of this statement is to read it as a command. When we read that we shall not want, we have a sense that it's because we are in the capable hands of our shepherd that we shouldn't, in other words, we shall not want for anything. In other words, to do so would be to discount the magnitude and capability of our shepherd, the Lord. Then he goes on, the NIV translation, so the one you see on the screen here, however, based upon the most accurate translations of the original texts, offers us a powerful nuance not found in the common translation. This newer translation reads, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." This translation reads as something more than a command that is to be followed. It reveals the declaration of a possibility regarding our present state of existence. Due to the Lord's role as our shepherd and his fulfillment of that role, our present state of being is without want. We have someone watching over us who provides what we need when it comes to the basics of life. This interpretation is further supported in the itemized list of how our needs are fulfilled. Our shepherd provides our world with food in verse 2, green pastures were the source of food for David's sheep, restoration and guidance in verse 3, protection in verse 4, strength as we face life's challenges in verse 5, and eternal love and life in verse 6. With these interpretations in mind, it becomes apparent why Psalm 23 is a hymn of strength as well as comfort. And I just found that really interesting, in that particularly the part about the translation, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. In other words, it's almost like the I am, so in the present, we lack nothing because God provides. It's not a command, it's a statement of what is. And I found that really, really interesting. It's only it's a nuance of it, but it really is a different way. And as Grace has said here, a great question to reflect on. Miko says it was 11:11. All right, cool. No coincidences, right, Miko? Synchronicities. Just really quickly then, Greg Braden then goes on, is how to use this as a wisdom code. He says, following is the complete text for Psalm 23. That's what you see on the screen here. Darkest Valley spelling mistake notwithstanding, as translated from the New International Version of the Bible. What he said is, recite this code silently in sets of 3 repetitions. So there is that magic number of 3 again. Silently or out loud until you feel the shift of your inner strength replace the doubt of your ability to transform your choices and your life. So I'd actually like you to practice that, if that's okay. So I'd invite you to practice it. So it says read it 3 times. So I'm going to be quiet. So I'll read it 3 times myself. I'll invite you to read it 3 times, and then we'll come back shortly. So I'll leave you to that. All right, so if you've had a chance to read Psalm 23, the NIV translation of it, has anyone got any comments or questions about that? You know, there may be something directed at Warren and the different translations, but it might be just a good point if there are any questions or comments now. It's okay if there's not. Famita, I felt a comforting presence when reading. Wow, Famita. Thank you for sharing. Sam, my body felt activated after reading it 3 times. Wow. Sheldon, I felt calm. Thanks for sharing, guys. That's great. Actually, it's interesting, Sheldon, because I actually only bought this book yesterday. We went to Brisbane to see my 2 girls who live in Brisbane. And we went to a shopping centre, had some coffee with them, and I generally hate shopping centres with crowds and that sort of thing. Being an empathic introvert, it's just all weirdo. It's all a bit too much for me at times. But yeah, went to a bookstore which was near the exit, and I bought a couple of books, and one of them was the Wisdom Codes. And when I just flicked through it, and when I saw there was the Lord's Prayer there was Psalm 23 there as an activation code, a wisdom code, I immediately went to that, and I followed those instructions that I've just shared with you there. And I agree, Carmen. I did, Sheldon. I did felt a calmness come over me. And yeah, Sam has called that activated. For me, just called that comforting. I felt something too when I read it 3 times, and I don't know if it's anything about that version, whether it's we're sending different ripples out into the energy field, whether it's just that taking the time to stop and be more of an artist. I'm just fascinated as how that's activating and how that's that's working for us. So I think one of my goals moving forward is, as I walk through this valley of shadows, is to be more open and be more aware of things like that, of the power of the words of the Bible and the different things that resonate with me. And I think one of the key things too is, and I think I've done this relatively well in my life, is I don't take everything. I take what resonates. I try and be open. Probably don't always work that way, but in practicality, but I try and be open. I take what resonates and really run with that. And that's Psalm 23 is one that always has. And Warren has mentioned several times in the last few weeks the power of the Lord's Prayer. And that's another one that I resonate with. Okay, let's keep moving. All right. I also want to share with you probably the greatest book title of any that I've ever seen. And I also picked this one up yesterday, but there's something in here that I think we all need to let go of, because I think it is all holding us back. At least that statement really resonates with me particularly, and it may resonate with you as well. But greatest headline / greatest title for a book that I think I've ever seen. So Gary John Bishop. You can't really be left in too much doubt with that, can you? Unfuck yourself, get out of your head and into your life. It does leverage a little bit off there's a whole raft of titles everyone's probably seen about, the magic of not giving a fuck and all that sort of stuff. But this one and just a couple of things in the contents really caught my eye, and I just wanted to share chapter 5 with you in particular. It starts like this. It says, you're an addict. You're out of control and so dependent on your drug of choice. You don't even realize how it's affecting your life. You have a gnawing craving, and that craving is for prediction. So will it rain tomorrow? How will my stock perform? Who will win the election? You are constantly looking ahead, trying to figure out what's going on, what's going to happen before it actually does. Why? Certainty. We seek the certain and avoid the uncertain. We want to know what to expect, where to go, and what to wear. We want to be prepared. We want to be safe. It is far beyond a want, though. It's more like that addiction. We're sizing people up even before we know them, predicting their character in seconds. We buy the goods and brand names we're used to, even though there are plenty of alternatives. We take supplements and vitamins to prevent an illness we don't yet have. Date people for months, sometimes years, to make sure of our future, to make sure that it turns out in a way that we can predict. Give me that certainty, certainty, certainty. And that kind of really hit me in the guts, and it made me reflect on my life and you know, that whole Catholic guilt kind of thing. And you know, I think that need for certainty has been ingrained through all of that, and that's why I said I'm shedding layers and layers of that, and I still continue to shed every day. One of the things that I really appreciated in listening to people like Shaquille was that one of his mantras is that everything in life is a risk. You know, and I'd never, even though I'd kind of heard that, I'd never really embraced it until I heard it that way. Understand this, the concepts of this book, and you know, everything in life is a risk is not new. You know, the ancient Roman historian Tacitus, he said the desire for safety stands against everything, every great and noble enterprise. And even the Greek philosopher Epictetus, he said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, to be vulnerable and be out there. Yet our natural aversion for many of us is, you know, to shy away from that, to stay safe, to be certain, because it's kind of scary when things are uncertain. You know, and what what Gary Bishop has said is that he says, shift your thinking, embrace the uncertainty. He says a good mantra is, I embrace the uncertainty, meet it head on, cherish it, enjoy it. Because he goes on, he said, the funny thing is, no matter how much you chase certainty, you'll never really be able to hold it or retain it. That's because it doesn't exist. The universe will always send us little reminders of its chaos and power, and no one is exempt from the prompting. Nothing is certain. You could go to sleep at night and never wake up. You could get in your car and never make it to work. Certainty is a complete illusion. Some of you might find this terrible to think about, but it's true. No matter how hard we may try, we can never predict exactly what life will bring. Our plans will falter at some point eventually. By running from uncertainty in search of certainty, we're actually rejecting the one thing in life that is guaranteed in favor of something that's nothing more than a fantasy. And Socrates said, all I know is that I know nothing. And he said, many wise people understand this. In fact, they owe their wisdom to that very realization, that they don't actually know a damn thing. And he goes on, because we think we know everything, we inadvertently turn ourselves away from the unknown and, by default, whole new realms of success. The person who accepts how unpredictable and uncertain life is has no choice but to embrace it. And then he said, successful people are not afraid of the uncertain. It's just part of life. They don't seek out certainty because they know it doesn't really exist. And I found all of that a little bit challenging at first. But, you know, the more I think about it, and again, it loops back to, you know, everything in life is a risk. And if I'm probably brutally honest with myself, I've been someone who's chased certainty. And it's kind of liberating to know that there is no certainty. It kind of takes a lot of the pressure off as well. And he said, remember, all of the successes, all of the experiences, all of the things you've always dreamed of are waiting for you in uncertainty. And that's not bad too. All of the successes, all of the experiences, all of the things you've always dreamed of are waiting for you in uncertainty. So I really like that. And I think that too, to me, that links really, really much to, you know, to going with your heart, because when you trust in that, and, you know, you trust, I guess, almost from that, you know, from Psalm 23, that you know that you hand things over to God, and everything is going to be okay. even if it's uncertain. And Grace has said, fuck, that is so good. This is really uncomfortable. It absolutely is. Yeah, it really is. Lexi says, embrace the mystery. I got that message from Spirit earlier today. That's awesome. Wow, Lexi, love the synchronicity there. How cool is that? That's really good. Yeah, embrace the uncertainty. Embrace the uncertainty. And remember back to Psalm 23, earth is likened to a valley because the consciousness of humans is so low. It is considered by many in the higher realms to be the valley of shadows and illusions. And those three big things, we observe that our negativity and terror are reality to you. What you do not understand is you have created these processes through the powers of your own mind. Oh shit, I need to be certain, therefore I'm fearful of what will happen. So it kind of the thread is kind of there. When one's consciousness transcends these illusions, oh, I'm okay with uncertainty, there's no longer a need to retain them. And since each creates his or her own reality through the power of the inner world, once negativity and fear replace that with the need for certainty are removed, those qualities will no longer manifest on the earth plane or in the individual's environment. And it says you really do have that much power as sisters and brothers of the universe. So the challenge to me, and I guess to all of us, is just that: do we embrace uncertainty enough? I know for me, I don't. And it also for me gets back to, I get caught in that 3D thing of having to pay bills, of having to be the breadwinner, that breadwinner syndrome kind of thing. And then it's got to get the bills paid, have the money coming in, get the business right, all of those sorts of things. But I now try and embrace the uncertainty. I embrace the uncertainty. I embrace the uncertainty. I embrace the uncertainty. Any questions or comments? Anyone want to take the mic or make any comments? Grace has said, yeah, starting a business will do that. Absolutely. Any other questions, comments? Anyone want to take the mic? No? Okay. Alrighty. Oh, hang on. We might have one here. Christine would like to take the mic. I might let you do that, Grace, if that's okay. Thanks, Christine, for the share.
Oh, thanks, Steve, for that. That was really, really, really interesting and quite relevant for me. I'll start off at the beginning, I think, where you were talking about going back to the Bible text. Well, I actually haven't really ever done that in my life. I've come across quite a lot, but I've never really studied them or had it really forced down my throat, so to speak. But what I have been doing recently is going back to them and pulling them apart. Grace is a wonderful guide, and I've been doing that with her and truly taking it slowly and doing what you did today with Psalm 23, actually looking at it and finding out really what it means, because it doesn't necessarily mean what it actually looks as though it means. And I've found that each time I do that, go a bit deeper and a bit deeper, some of the revelations are amazing. So I would certainly encourage everyone to look at that. And Psalm 23 for me, I read it every day, more than once. And reading that really takes me to another place, because we have pulled it apart quite a bit, and the understanding of that, walking through the shadows, walking through this dense earth in the matrix and all that stuff, everything's being fired at you at once. Yeah, to have that revelation that you don't have to be part of all that, that it is an illusion. And if we can embrace all those things that you talked about, it really makes a difference. And that's where we come to the ripples on the pond too. That somebody said that to me once. Actually, it was a doctor that I was quite friendly with, and she said, "You throw a stone in the pond, you never know how far the ripples are going to go out." That's absolutely true. And every area of our life. So thank you very much. It's been really good.
Pleasure, Christine, and thanks for the share. It's interesting what you said, how you go into layers, different layers. You know, you see things, the more you go into it, the more you see. And I must admit, you know, in the 3D here, I'm a little bit of an impatient male type thing. I find that a little bit frustrating, that, oh, why didn't I see that the first time? But again, that's about, I think for me, getting back to the heart space and just slowing down and approaching it more from an artistic rather than just getting a getting finished point of view, which is more of a 3D energy. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
I agree with that. It's hard to slow down, but it's really certainly worthwhile. And yesterday we spent 2 hours on one verse, and it really was amazing. I'm out of it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And Will said all the throwing up was worth it. Hey, Steve. Yeah, I think it was. Will, thank you. Mentioning layers, something tells me, Will, we may not be finished just yet. All right, Sam would like the mic too, please, Grace, if that's all right. Thank you, Christine. Thanks, Will.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Sam.
I just wanted to share around that whole, you know, the breadwinner thing and the chasing the money and all that kind of thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That was definitely me, being a single parent with 2 kids. And I think my mantra in life was, I don't have enough time. That was always the thing that I always said. And so I was always chasing the money and just, I didn't have time for anything else in my life. And I just decided that I needed to remove that mantra from my life and do something different. And I've kind of started embracing the uncertainty of, will I have enough time? Who knows? Let's just wait and see. And I just started doing more things apart from work in life. And it's like, well, will I have the funds that I need to support my family? We'll wait and see. Who knows? But I'm just going to do other things instead. And it's amazing when you start doing that, the changes that happen in your life. So now that I say yes to spending, you know, 3 hours with my son playing silly games on tablets and computers and laughing over silly things instead of working for 3 hours and doing stuff like that, and it's just amazing. I've had more funds in my life than I did when I was stressing out constantly. So it's been quite an interesting journey that I'm still working on. The next piece of the puzzle is, how do I fit homeschooling in, being the only breadwinner in the house? So that will be my next step of uncertainty to put in the mix. But yeah, I really embrace that whole uncertainty and stretching, and yeah, it's a very interesting journey.
Awesome, Sam. Thank you. Yeah, and the thing that came up for me when you were saying that was, yeah, doesn't it just piss you off? You know, like, what is it? Why do we have to work like that? Why do we have to be wired like that? But you know, at least I think the positive thing is having reminders and then applying them in the 3D. I think that's, you know, that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
new
thanks,
mantra,
Sam.
let go and trust.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And Lexia said, an interesting message, Steve, very insightful. And then she said, we'll learn to enjoy letting the process unfold more naturally and not so forced. Yeah, great reminder. Yeah, thanks, Lexi. True. And Famita has said, I was speaking with my son and he was telling me how nothing he planned is working out as he planned. I told him that this happens to just about everyone. Yeah, your message has been a confirmation for me. Yeah, wow. Isn't that interesting, Famita? It's so true. You know, we in our narrow frame of reference in the 3D here, we think, well, we're going to do this and this time and this and this and this and this and this. And that, you know, that is just us trying to put certainty into the uncertainty, and that's probably why it doesn't work out. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, Famita. All right, and so anyone who, I've just got I guess a final little segment here about being caught up in the 3D. Thanks, Sam. Great message. Thank you. And this probably, I think, anchors everything that I've said, because I've got this book that my wife bought for me secondhand at some bookstore in Tasmania when she went to see her brother when she was waiting for coffee or something. I don't know. I mean, most of us would be aware of the Tao, and Wayne Dyer is very big on it, etc. I don't think I've ever read Winnie the Pooh story to the kids. I've got 4 kids, as most of you know. That's not something that's been a part of my child's upbringing. Lots of other things, but not this, not in my childhood, not in my kids' childhood. So this book has kind of been on the shelf, just staring there. And one day in the past sort of 6 weeks or so, I've picked it up. And it's some really interesting messages in there. So I just want to pick out one message in particular that, again, I fight all the time, and it's the gone out Baxen, busy Baxen. So the story of the busy Baxen. So by definition, a busy Baxen is a person who always seems to have to be going somewhere, at least on a superficial physical level. And again, I'd ask you to stop and reflect. How true is that in your life at certain times? Do you always have to be somewhere? Always have to do something? Always have a next thing to go to? Guilty? My hand's up. You know, and again, that's getting back to the artist. I'm trying to be more of the artist than the busy Baxen. Chung Say, so on page 92, there's this parable, and it says, there was a man who disliked seeing his footprints and his shadow. He decided to escape from them and began to run. But as he ran along, more footprints appeared, while his shadow easily kept up with him. Thinking he was going too slowly, he ran faster and faster, without stopping, until he finally collapsed from exhaustion and died. And the little kicker, if he had stood still, there would have been no footprints. If he had rested in the shade, his shadow would have disappeared. And you've kind of, well, at least when I reflect on my life, I just go, oh shit, am I the guy running from my shadow and the footprints that are behind me to get somewhere else? It makes me stop and think. Yeah, Christine said she loves that. Yeah, it goes a bit deeper, Christine. So I'll keep pushing ahead. The busy Baxen is almost desperately active. If you ask him what his life interests are, he will give you a list of physical activities such as skydiving, tennis, jogging, racquetball, skiing, swimming, and water skiing. And at this point, and so if you might then say, well, is that all? And he'll go, well, you know, how about wrestling alligators? You know, wanted to do that, roller skating, etc., etc. At this point, the Baxen replies thoughtfully, I say, do you think there's something I'm missing or something wrong with me? Maybe I'm losing my energy. And, you know, the athletic sort of Baxen, the one of the many common varieties, is concerned with physical fitness, but for some reason he sees it as something that has to be pounded in him from the outside rather than built up from the inside. Therefore, he confuses exercise with work. He works when he works when he exercises, and more often than not, works when he plays. Work, work, work. All work and no play makes Baxen a dull boy. Kept up long enough, it makes him dead too. Let's put it this way. If you want to be healthy, relaxed, and contented, just watch what a busy Baxen does, and then do the opposite. And it goes on to say, there's one now, pacing back and forth, jiggling those loose coins in his pocket, nervously glancing at his watch. He makes you feel tired just looking at him. The chronic Baxen always seems to have to be going somewhere, at least on a superficial level, physical level. He doesn't go out for a walk though, he doesn't have time. And the busy Baxen is always on the run, it seems always doing something. And you know, it's that whole notion of back out, gone soon, busy, gone soon. You know, the busy Baxen is always going somewhere he hasn't been, anywhere but where he is, for a reward perhaps. Our busy Baxen, religion, sciences and businesses, or religion, sciences and businesses, business ethics have tried their hardest to convince us that there is a great reward waiting for us somewhere, and that what we have to do is spend our lives working like lunatics to catch up with it. Whether it's up in the sky, behind the next molecule, or in the executive suite, it's always farther along than we are, just down the road on the other side of the world, past the moon, beyond the stars. And you know, it kind of makes you think, well, it doesn't really sound like much fun. And, you know, it's that whole thing of around the next corner, above the next step. It works against the natural order of things, though, and makes it difficult to be happy and good, that only a few get to where they would naturally have been in the first place, happy and good. And the rest give up and fall by the side of the road, cursing the world, which is not to blame, but which is there to help you show the way. Those who think that the rewarding things in life are somewhere beyond the rainbow are the busy Baxons. And I'll just read this last part of it, because the busy Baxon idea, according to this particular book, is actually born of in a deep historical context for all of us. The emphasis is on the US, but it is for all of us as well. I've mentioned those things, around the next corner, etc., etc. So looking back a few years, we see the first busy Baxons in this part of the world, that's the US. The Puritans practically worked themselves to death in the fields without getting much of anything in return for their tremendous efforts. They were actually starving until the wiser inhabitants of the land showed them a few things about working in harmony with the earth's rhythms. Now you plant, now you relax. Now you work the soil, now you leave it alone. The Puritans never really understood the second half. They never really believed in it. And so after 2 or 3 centuries of pushing the once fertile earth, and a few years of depleting its energy still further with synthetic stimulants, we have apples that taste like cardboard, oranges that taste like tennis balls, and pears that taste like sweetened styrofoam, all products of soil that is no longer allowed to relax. We're not supposed to complain, but there it is. And so from the Puritans, the restless kind of pioneer then followed, the restless cowboy, if you like, or the restless pioneer. And that pioneer was, was out to conquer the world, the paradise that was. They had to go and do new things, build roads, etc., 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 always striving for that reward, continually going further west and west and west and conquering everything. And again, most countries are like that as well. We're always out conquering something, doing something. So away from the miserable Puritan came the restless pioneer, and from him the lonely cowboy, always riding off into the sunset, looking for something just down the trail. From this rootless, dissatisfied ancestry has come the busy Baxon, who, like his forefathers, has never really felt at home, at peace in this friendly land. Rigid, combative fanatic that he is, the tight-fisted Baxon is just too hard on himself, too hard on others, and too hard on the world that heroically attempts to carry on in spite of what he is doing. It's not surprising, therefore, that the Baxon thinks of progress in terms of fighting and overcoming. One of his little idiosyncrasies, you might say. Of course, real progress involves growing and developing, which involves changing inside, but that's something the inflexible Baxon is unwilling to do. The urge to grow and develop, present in all forms of life, becomes perverted by the busy Baxon's mind into a constant struggle to change everything. In other words, the bulldozer Baxon and everyone, the bigoted Baxon, but themselves. And they interfere with things they have no business interfering with, including practically every form of life on Earth. At least to a limited extent, his behaviour has been held in check by wiser people around him. But like parents of hyperactive children, the wise find that they can't be everywhere at once. Babysitting the Baxons wears you out. And I think it's probably my contention that's one of the reasons, we have this busy Baxon society, and that's why we're exhausted. We have all of these, medical problems and so forth. And the whole notion of the busy Baxon is the antithema to how to be an artist, how to slow down. And to me, that's the great conundrum of living in this 3D world. We can't ignore everything around us, yet we need to ignore everything around us. And that's my great personal struggle of coming to terms with that. And as I shed different layers and all of the conditioning and upbringing and my own version of busy Baxons, I'm seeing things differently. But yeah, babysitting the Baxons, it does wear you out. All right, one quick comment. So I just wanted to share that Christina said Mary and Martha in the Bible. I'm not, do you want to take the mic and share that one, Christine? I'm not actually familiar with that one. I was probably off daydreaming when I should have been listening in Sunday Mass or something. Yeah, thanks. If you can give her the mic, please, Grace, that'd be great.
Oh, hi, Stu. When we were talking about all of that busy backs and being busy doing stuff, there's a story in the Bible, it's in the New Testament, and I'm not exactly sure. It's in one of the Gospels, and it talks about these sisters Mary and Martha was very busy all the time looking after people, doing stuff and all that. And Mary would sit and listen to Jesus. And so the whole story is about those who sit and listen. Mary got apparently quite annoyed with, Martha got quite annoyed with Mary because she didn't help doing all the stuff. But she was listening. And I guess she was listening with her heart. So all those things that you've just said, and I thought that when you first put up how to be an artist, but now that you've been talking about the busy Baxons, it just, like you said before, going back to the Bible and reading those stories and actually understanding what they mean, exactly what you're talking about, the busy Baxon didn't learn all the lessons from the heart. Whereas her sister was able to sit there and listen, and she didn't worry about doing all that other stuff. That's really quite amazing.
And it's interesting, Christine, it goes back to that, probably one of the first parts of what I heard you say when I joined a little bit late is to go with your heart. And I think often a lot of the time we're just too busy to do that. We're the busy Baxon, and we don't take enough time to be that artist, to step out. And it's so easy to say, well, just slow down and be the artist, but it's harder to do in this dense 3D existence that we're in.
Absolutely. So I just thought it was really, really interesting how it's all come together. And you did talk about those verses, and so the message has been there for centuries.
Yeah.
And we haven't been listening. But listening, doing those things that slows us down, and listening to all those messages, what actually takes us to the next level. We don't have to work so hard. We don't have to work at all in that regard.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't have to do anything. It doesn't have to be that hard.
It doesn't have to be flogging ourselves to death as we kind of always do.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the share. So yeah, I'll leave everyone to think about and reflect on, are you the busy Baxon or you the artist in life? It's I think it's a question for all of us as we walk through the valley of shadows and how we deal with that. I think it's the universal struggle, or at least it's my struggle anyway. Okay, I just wanted to finish up a reading from the Blue Angel Oracle. Last time I did a reading from the Rumi Oracle, one of my favourite sets of cards. The other set of cards that I've got several sets, but I do really like the Blue Angel. And Blue Angel obviously is Archangel Michael. The author of these is Tony Carmine Salerno, who lives in Melbourne. He's an artist and a spiritual teacher. And I did this reading at about 11:15 or so my time, not knowing what would come out, and it's kind of interesting. I said, Archangel Michael, just give me guidance about what I need to tell the folks today. And it's interesting what card came out. I do love these though because of the geometry on the back of them. That's obviously some kind of portal or something, which is fascinating. But the reading I did for everyone in the group today is this one, the Peace Angel, Acceptance. There's a number of synchronicities here for me anyway, in terms of started with the wings of the angel in the clouds. And I drew this card long after I'd set up the slides. you know, in the, again, you look at the center of the card, you know, the heart is there. We've been talking very much about the heart and the importance of it. You know, Famita says, thank you, Christine, for sharing that. Alex says, how fitting. Yeah, so the message from this reading is this. And so you will find peace when you learn to love and accept yourself as you are. How you see yourself usually determines how others see you and react to you. So what you see in the world around you is really your own reflection. Surrender your negative thoughts. Your fear, hurt, and anger can be healed through love. Holding on to these emotions serves no purpose other than to keep you stuck in a cycle of pain and suffering. Accept and love yourself as you are without condition. Count your blessings and not your faults. Let your beautiful heart be filled with light. When you let go of your desire to change things, a beautiful transformation occurs. Just be love. And then it ends with a little quote from Walt Whitman. Peace is always beautiful. And when I reflect back to Psalm 23 and to Greg Braden's message about the ripples that we put out into the cosmos, you know, the third or fourth sentence down there, so what you see in the world around you is really your own reflection. Surrender your negative thoughts. Your fear, hurt, and anger can be healed through love. You know, that's very much a similar message to what Psalm 23 was giving. It's just said in a different way. So when I drew that card and I read that, and I just went, oh wow, okay, nice synchronicities. So that's pretty much it. I said I'll show you some energy shifts that continue via the messages in nature. We took a deeper look at Psalm 23. Do you need to let go of this? And that's the certainty. We talked about the curse of the busy Baxen and the amazingly congruent oracle card reading from the Blue Angel deck. So are there any questions? Anyone got any other last comments to make before I hand back to Grace and Warren? Fiona says, great lessons today. Thank you. Thanks, Fiona. Appreciate that. Sheldon, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Sheldon. Thanks for participating. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Will. Get the bucket ready. Thanks, Famita. Yeah, I think it's great that you joined us all the way from the US. So thank you, Miko. Yeah, namaste to you as well. Thank you. Yeah, good on you, Will. Yep. All right. So just to bring it all together, then the last couple of things. So for you this week, I'd encourage you to be an artist, not a busy Baxen, and I'd encourage you to brace the uncertainty. They're sort of going to be my mantras for this week and even moving forward. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll hand back to Grace and or Warren.
Thank you so much, Steve. That really spoke to me. Everything, all of the above has spoken to me because, you know, as you know, one of the things that certainly is good for uncertainty is running a business. And it's been a great lesson for me for this week, running our business and having to really let go and having to not take control of it, but allowing it to flow. So that's just a huge reminder for me in terms of, you know, just let go. And as you say, being an artist. And it's not an easy thing to do either, being an artist, because you do have to let go.
Yeah. One of the things too, Grace, this was really instructive for me when, and if I could share a bit of vulnerability here, when you first invited me to, you know, to speak to this group. I mean, one of my striving for certainty was, well, Grace, what if it's complete and utter shit? What if people don't like what I do? You know, and I've never forgotten what you said. She said, well, you said, well, how do you think a singer feels every time they release a song? They don't know whether people are going to like it, yet they do their best and they sing their song anyway. And that's, you know, that was an incredible lesson that you really don't, and it ties in to that in uncertainty, you know, and that being vulnerable of, well, oh, well, you know, if everyone thinks you're an absolute idiot, well, okay, lesson learned, you know. But it, yeah, it's really tied together. So interesting. Yeah, and for me to have said, Grace, yes, Grace, we are always told to make and submit business plans, but when you start the business, it turns out nothing like the business plan at all. Isn't that true, hey? You've got to have a business plan, right? Yeah, and until you actually go to sell something, that's a classic.
Well, we know, because Steve runs his own business himself, so I think we know what that's all about for me, does. So it certainly hits home for me.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting comments from Alex too. He says, thanks, well done. Now back to juggling, being busy and enjoying being an artist. Alex, if you ever get that figured out, please tell the rest of us, all right? Because we're still walking through the valley.
Well, that's the beauty of being, you know, because I do a lot of work with other people, and the fun part of being in guiding is that just removing myself out of the way, which is a lot easier than getting my hands in there and being involved. But that's just part of being an artist, watching the canvas and, you know, allowing the colours to come through, and the colours comes from the people themselves. So what did Fiona say?
Yeah, maybe that's why I never had a business plan.
Actually, I do have a business coach myself. Someone works with me, is coaching me through the business that we go through. And one day he asked me, "So, what's the business plan, Grace?" I'm like, I really don't know. I wouldn't have a clue, because doing the work that we're doing, you know, getting into the spirit and translating it into matter, you could put it into something, and then the whole thing changes the very next day. So therefore, this uncertainty, it's a game of uncertainty, isn't it? Because you might be certain today, then the whole thing can go belly up the next day. Then you have to rejig the whole thing again. So I'm thinking, you know what, let's just hire someone, pay someone to write our business plan. Much easier that way. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought that DAO, Steve, because I was actually looking at it this morning, and DAO really, it means the way. And it's all about nature. And I like your messages, because your messages naturally goes by nature. And so DAO talks about harmonizing nature with spirit, and just that reflection in itself, because hey, we get so busy, and we can get uptight in the spirit as well. We can really get uptight and thinking, hey, we know we finally worked something out, and then the impossible happens, it gets turned upside down again. And so that's why I really enjoy DAO. So if any one of you guys don't know anything about DAO, I really encourage you to have a look at it, because it's so simple. It's so simple, but in its simplicity, it's so deep and very reflective. And so just to finish it off for you, Steve, I'd like to read something from DAO itself. One of them is chapter 14, so I'll just share my screen.
I'll just stop sharing first, then we go.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, this is one of the books, so it's not as complicated or mystical as the Bible. So Tao is actually one of the second popular, as my research found that the Tao is actually one of the second one next to the Bible. So this one is chapter 14. So if you have a read of that, so I'll just read it with you guys. So look, and it can't be seen. Listen, and it can't be heard. Reach, and it can't be grasped. Above, it isn't bright. Below, it isn't dark. Seamless, unnameable, it returns to the realm of nothing. Form that includes all forms. Image without an image. Subtle, beyond all conception. Approach it and there is no beginning. Follow it and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it. At ease in your own life. Just realize where you came from. This is the essence of wisdom. Now, how good is that? It does your brain in, but you started with the message from the heart. Go from the heart. And this is the power of the heart harmonizing with nature. And by just going through that, it brings out the artist in you, doesn't it? There is no shape or form, it just is.
Mm.
So how good is that? More deepness, yes.
Yeah, it hurts thinking about that one.
Well, in the mind or the heart?
The mind.
Yes, because what? Your message there as well as the artist and letting go of certainty.
Mm.
I mean, I'm getting back to my artist one, looking at the blank canvas. Where do you start? Where do you end? So, no. Thank you so much for that message, Steve. So hopefully everyone, I'm sure that touched everybody. It certainly touched me. So what we're going to do now is we're finishing now. Warren would like to share a few comments as well. So Warren, over to you.
Yeah, that was great, Steve. And I enjoyed that. And of course, I've probably just got 3 things to finish off based in response to really what Steve was saying. And the best things come in 3. I think Steve taught me about the power of 3. Haven't convinced Sammy of that yet, but yeah, best. So the first thing is the artist. I can't. Has anyone here seen Toy Story 2? Like the second Toy Story with Buzz Lightyear and all that. Anyone seen that? And with Woody and Prospector Pete and Pete the Old Prospector. Yeah, well, Steve and Fiona, yep. Yeah, I just can't help it, Steve. Sorry, mate. When you talk about the artist and being the artist, I just keep thinking of that part when Prospector Pete is trying to force them into the toy museum, that little toy, and all the toys are fighting in the airport carrier. And finally, they overpower Prospector Pete, and they quickly put him into some lady's bag where he's next to a Barbie doll. And basically, the Barbie doll goes, "You like Amy? She's an artist." And then looks at him, and she's covered with makeup. And of course, Prospector Pete goes, "No!" So yeah, I'm sorry, I just had to. Yeah, Grace loves it. I just love that. Like, that just summarizes everything about an artist. You know, "You love Amy. She's an artist." So yeah. Anyway, so Sammy's shaking her head, thinking I've got real problems. But anyway, that's her paradigm. The second thing is from that one about being the artist and letting go. I couldn't agree more. And I just can't help thinking of like when Jesus said about becoming more like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And yeah, I'm finding that these days, the more I'm letting go, as Steve would put it, I'm actually noticing that. So letting go. And that basically, it literally is like, you just start to become the real you. You just let go. You have a blank canvas and you just don't know half the time how it's going to work out. And when you think like a child, you see like the, you know, like the Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, and I just laugh. I just kind of chuckle at it and don't get worked up at any of it, and just see the kind of humor in it all. And of course, I'm finding I've become going back to my big boyhood. This morning I was running around dancing, listening to music, and I find the more I just let go and just chuckle and enjoy life, it's amazing how much more downloads and deeper stuff comes to me. And I just start to go, you know what? Life is really quite simple. I'll just enjoy life and just have fun and let it basically, like Jesus said, be like a little child where you just don't have any programming. You just don't have the kind of things and the belief systems. You just let go of it all. And that's what I'm finding. And the third thing I mentioned is coming out of that one and letting go. What I've really noticed was this week was my shoulder, which has been, I mean, I've always had like a lot of restriction in my left shoulder and difficulties moving it for years. It's just been something I've hidden it really, really well. And I've just been noticing that I've been getting led to do stuff as I've just been letting go in business and in life and in family responsibility. And I'm just noticing with amazing what's happening. Like my shoulder's the best it's been in years. Like I woke up yesterday for the first time since I was a teenager. It's like my knees felt young. I could actually bounce and do squats with feeling virtually no inflammation or soreness. I noticed my shoulder was moving almost perfectly. I feel this like life and vibrancy. And I was actually noticing that the Voyage of the Dawn Treader was on last night. It's a Narnia book, and the 7 Narnia series where C.S. Lewis, probably some of the deeper secrets of the kingdom of heaven in those fiction stories which people miss. And in that 5th book of the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the way it happens, they go on all these journeys and go through all these trials and these troubles. And then what happens is they get onto what's called the last sea, where they start going towards Aslan's country. And as they go on there, it says the sailors grew younger and younger. And as they were looking at them, the closer, and as the light got brighter, their faces became younger. And they started to laugh. They were like kids again. Everyone had this joy. They were starting to see mermaids and sea creatures coming up laughing from the water. And then basically, yeah, as I was reading that, when I read that years ago, I just had that was what put a hunger in my heart, but never left. A hunger to return basically to find, in a way, Aslan's country, that home, that kingdom of heaven. And in a way, a lot of it was serious, and I was on this great big spiritual study, and I still do study seriously. But I started to realize that the more you just let go, you just start to feel younger and younger. You just start to let go. You just realize that the kingdom of heaven, Christ is within you. And a lot of it's just laughter. It's fun. I'm discovering that even yesterday, as I was doing some code activations on me, I was feeling a bit nervous, and I just got this little message, and all it was, you know what, Warren? I just had this like a challenge from the Ancient of Days. He said, what if you just completely let go and stop distracting yourself with your phone and Facebook and all the little things, and just every time you feel like you want to jump on your phone or on Facebook, just center yourself and see what happens. So I thought, okay. And as I was doing that, next minute I was like ripped into this vortex, and I'm right in the Father's throne before the Ancient of Days, and I could just feel His joy, and I could just feel oneness, how things just is. And for a brief moment, my mind started to think, oh, what do I do here? And I thought, nothing. And in that moment, it's like I wasn't even a witness. I was nothing. I was just one. I felt I was one with everything. We were all there. There was stillness. And probably for one of the first times, I started to think, now I can see why it says in Revelation that all those 24 elders do is go, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Because I think, how can you just basically be in there just doing that all the time? And I thought, wow, if you're here, you just don't really want to say anything. You could just stay here indefinitely and never leave it. So, yeah, the kingdom of heaven is within us. And the more we just let go and become that artist, Steve said, let that right brain creative chaos, just a blank picture. Yeah, well, who knows what we can do? Who knows? I was just getting a vision this morning. I was seeing City Awakening in the future, in days to come. I was seeing this glorious center, this auditorium, I was seeing centres at like huge centre. I was seeing centres everywhere, and I was thinking like, wow. And I was seeing creative arts. I was seeing music. The Bible's full of music. It's full of dance. It's full of arts. When you read the Psalms, it just says constantly, like, rejoice before the Lord. And again, I say rejoice. So dance before the Lord. And yeah, I reckon there's so much joy. And love what Steve said, because just, yep, keeps it simple. Let's be an artist and let's just enjoy life. So Steve loves that. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So there's so much we can do. So just remember, as you go about your rest of your Sunday and during the week, just remember these final words. You like Amy? She's an artist. And that should make your life lots of fun. Sappy's just sitting there shaking your head thinking, what on earth have I got myself into with this guy? I just love that Toy Story. Rule number 6, there are no rules. Exactly. I still remember when the boys were young and we used to watch that movie, and I used to love giving them shit, as you probably worked out, you know, and I would give, I used to like giving them, allocating them roles from that movie. And especially if I knew one of them didn't want it, like we made William was Woody, William remembers, and Josiah was Pete the prospector, because we all thought he was a grumpy little shit, I used to tell him. And James and Edward, I think I told Edward that James was Buzz Lightyear, and I think Edward, I told him he was, you know, Jane, that horse. So anyway, I'm sure by now you're all thinking, what on earth are we doing in this work? Fortunately, you've got guys like Steve Plummer, who's semi-normal, semi's probably at best, and then Grace, who's, you know, very, you know, dubiously normal. And then you got me to bring stability to you all. Anyway, enjoy everyone. It's 12:12, which is the Ascension code, so it's a good time to go away and ascend back to source. And just remember, yeah, like Amy, she's an artist. So enjoy your Sundays, guys.